Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Moen After Dark. I am, of course, Moen. Beside me is my co-host, Immaculate, my co-pilot tonight.
Yes.
Immaculate is joining me. We've got a lot to talk about. Primarily, tomorrow and Tuesday, commissioners are meeting to discuss the future of the 2024-2025 CFP, but it has definite overtones of what's going to happen in 2026 and beyond. Um, we learned that the Big Ten pushed for a 16-team playoff, or at least threw it out there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a push or if it's kind of like you throw something in just to see if it causes everyone to stir and how they
might
react.
Might have been the carrot that they're feeding the proverbial mule to get it to move along.
Yeah.
But we'll see. What did you think about the article? And if you haven't read the article from Heather Dinich, there's two articles now. Heather Dinich released one on ESPN, and Ross Dellinger released one on Yahoo Sports about 15 minutes ago. I'll go ahead and put links in the chat.
I saw hers. I hadn't seen his yet.
Yeah, I will put links in the chat for you guys.
And first off, I got to say, am I Gilligan?
If I can whomp you with my hat, you can be.
Because I got to tell you, when I first saw you, I was like, man, is that what he's going for?
Skipper, the SS Moen.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of what I saw with that, there was actually some good stuff in there. Heather Dinich, people give her hassle, but she has been with the CFP as ESPN's reporter there basically from the beginning. So she had some good details in there. Like, we did not know that they had a payout structure for 2014, 2015 for the individual teams. So we'll talk about that. The 16-team thing from Petiti was a shocker for me that it came from him, of all people. I was a little surprised. So it leaves me wondering, is that what they want? Or is that something that are they trying to stir things up to get it moving? Everything's been kind of settled and stationary and static. Kind of feels like they're stirring the pot. And with the Big Ten and SEC at least talking together, they're going to be able to do some stirring. So, see what else was there besides that on it? There was 2 or 3 good portions in there in terms of what can do. It's a lot of conjecture on the writer's part, obviously.
Sure.
But
revenue was the big one. I think that's the biggest one. That's what's gonna ruffle the most feathers, for sure. Not going to be a lot of happy people if they start changing the revenue distribution model to favor 1 or 2 conferences over, say, another 2 conferences. SMU, that still needs to be decided.
Yeah, I think that's leverage.
Yeah, Oregon State, Washington State still needs to be decided. Are they going to get that full autonomous payout? So, I mean, lots of good questions, no answers, but hey, just seeing the questions, that's kind of exciting. I think the big takeaway we have to have from this, though, is that 16 teams could be coming in 2026 and beyond. And if 16 teams is coming, how does that affect conference championships? How does that affect scheduling? Do we schedule more cupcakes? Do we schedule earlier in the season? Does the Big Ten go down to 8 conference games, similar to what the SEC does? Lots of interesting questions, but let's say hello to the people who've trickled in here. Buckshot Kid, he was here early. Yes, he was here right when I created the show this afternoon.
Numero uno.
I literally created the show and was checking on something, and he was there. So thanks for being here that early, Buckshot Kid. I hope you haven't been sitting here waiting that long. Dan Meter, I don't think I've seen you here before, Dan. Welcome. Don't know for sure, but what they proposed to the NCAA and to the other conferences will definitely be to their advantage. Talking probably about the Big Ten and the SEC. They have the power and don't want to relinquish it.
Yeah.
David Hackett, a member. Oh, by the way, guys, just recorded a new members-only video with Wild Youth. That is now up in the members-only section.
Just came out.
Just a little short video talking about private equity and how that'll work out with Florida State. how it could potentially work out for Florida State, I should say. Real short, it's about 8-9 minutes. So if you get a chance, I would definitely suggest going to take a look at it. Yes, times are definitely changing for the Big and the SEC expansion and Power 2. I think things are changing for everybody. Some people change is exciting, and some people change can be scary. So, Dan Meter again, there is no more Power 5, 4, or even 3. It's Big Ten and SEC. All driven by the dollar. Let them break off. I don't care. Eventually, the middle or lower end of those conferences will have empty seats.
Maybe. I mean, I think everyone's reacting to this in kind of exactly the way that that persons in power want. I don't think anything's ever going to go that extreme, but perceptively wise, people are seeing as it's a power 2. I don't think ever in any type of actual administrative way do they separate, but monetarily, sure.
Ryan Willie's here from Wisconsin. Good to see you, Ryan. He wanted to let us know Greg doesn't think the Big or the SEC would poach each other's teams. I agree. I don't think they would poach. I think that Texas A&M would be the free pizza rule. But if someone sends free pizza to your house, you don't turn it down, man. If Texas A&M comes calling, you don't turn it down.
That's some spicy pizza, though.
It is. Jim F's here. Howdy. Howdy to you, Jim F. Antoine Codes. Good evening. Good evening. Pickles is in the house. Bow down to the Huskies.
All right.
Pickles is going to be doing something on the channel here soon as well.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Daniel Gygax. It's going to be difficult for me to watch Moen and Utes FSU video and the live stream. It's only 8 or 9 minutes. You guys can wait till after the live stream. It's 8 or 9 minutes. Just a real basic understanding of private equity and how it works and how it could work for Florida State. Conundrums here. Don't leave your destiny to chance. What are you waiting for? The time has come to make your break out. I take it that's the lyrics to a song.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly who sang it, but it definitely flips trigger.
Yeah. It sounds like a Foo Fighters song. I wish Greg would have started his live show earlier. I hate when my favorite shows are live at the same time. Hey, we go every Sunday at 8:00, man. That's our time.
It's the Godfather. He goes when he goes, but yeah,
Yep.
we have our time, so that's what we stuck with.
Summit Hawks in the house. Let's go. Conundrum,
Yeah.
where's Marianne? Well, yeah, we don't have
question.
a lot of female representation on the show. We wanted to get Dawn Wells here tonight, but it turns out she's dead.
See, Laura sees it too. I was like, first time I saw it, I was like, am I Gilligan?
Oh, I'll whomp you with my hat, little buddy. Mr. Monkey says is in. That's monkeys. That's something you'd see on Gilligan's Island. Love Boat or Gilligan's Island? I would if that's a good question. I'm a Gilligan's Island guy. It's funnier.
We thought
Love
Gilligan's
Boat.
Island in the beginning, but that's actually,
Love
Love
Boat's good
Boat.
too.
Because we're not really stranded on an island. We're going somewhere. So,
come aboard. Adventure's waiting for you. Moen is on the Love Boat. Thank you, Sergeant Pickles.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have that stuck in my head all night, the theme from the Love Boat. Thanks. All right, let's get to some comments here. Immaculate from Sergeant Pickles. My point earlier is that expanded conference playoffs are more likely to have rematches than expanded CFP. Casuals want non-conference matchups.
we were just talking about this before the show too. So just to go into this a little bit, with the way that's going to be set up, especially if they go to 16, with all the first round home games, having your top teams now that it's not even like divisions, it's just straight up your top 2 teams. One of them taking a loss right before that every time could easily push them down from a home game in the first round to an away game. And then that affects their chances to move on to the next rounds. Now that we know each round pays out a certain amount, it's almost detrimental to the conference's bottom line. when they're only making at top end $20 million per conference championship game. With that loss, that affects every team that played that team and their power ranking as well. So, we're wondering if they do this 16 thing, that might be the end of the conference championship game.
I don't disagree. I think you might be right on. I think you might be onto something there.
Yeah, and it's just also, as we were talking, just to add to that real quick, when you're talking about the amount of time off, with conference championship games, it's an extra week after the season. Those teams who win that get the bye time to have an extra week of preparation if they got injured guys. Whereas if they do away with those buys to go to 16, that's actually a disadvantage for your conference champion to have one less week of preparation compared to some of the teams that they might be playing. So there's a lot of reasons to get rid of those conference championships if they moved from 12 to 16. We'll see.
Oh, this one's for me. Moen, which do you choose, Kentucky bourbon or Tennessee whiskey? Cincinnati Reds or Cleveland Guardians? Well, one, Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati Reds, Cincinnati Bengals fan. Young Moen would have went with Tennessee whiskey. Older Moen has learned to appreciate the complexities of bourbon. My early days with bourbon was Jim Beam and Jim Beam and Jim Beam. Now I've begun to understand how you can get more flavor and more robust aroma out of a bourbon than you can a Tennessee whiskey. And he wanted to do a thank you for the gift membership, Immaculate. Did you gift him a membership? Cool.
No, I think we when they went
from
out
the giveaway.
Night, I think he got one.
Okay. Yeah, we did 5 promos because we had 200 viewers on Friday night. So that's where you would have got that from.
I think he was one of those.
Kazoo, do you think an SEC or Big Ten championship game would have a higher viewership than a first-round playoff game between a Big Ten and SEC team in the new 12-team playoff?
I don't know. Like maybe not. Depends upon the matchups. But
I could, it depends on the match.
I could, in the time the Big Ten championship game comes on, like kind of in a prime time and Saturday night. When would that first game be? What day? There's a lot to go into that, but it's a good question. I mean, it is possible that the first round game would get better viewership than the championship game for the Big Ten.
Yeah, and the Big Ten championship game is on broadcast television, whereas the CFP is going to be locked behind a paywall, so on ESPN. So
maybe that's kind of the talk, but they aren't right now. It's not actually been decided yet. I don't think they were trying to sell that first round, but it's kind of leaning in that direction.
Summit Hawk has gifted 5 more memberships to the Big 12 Mafia Network.
Thanks, Summit Hawk.
Winner.
Just in time to check the new video.
So we got 5 new members to check those videos. If you got one of the memberships in the chat, please go ahead and thank Summit Hawk for that. We appreciate you, Summit Hawk. You're killing it out here for us, man. I see you all the time out here promoting our show, talking us up. Absolutely killing it. Rock Chalk 94 is tired with arguing with genetics fans. He's fed them all utter bullshit. Well,
it's the internet.
You mean someone would go on the internet and just lie?
People are going to believe what they want to believe, and we'll see how everything pans out. Maybe he's right about some things. We don't know. Maybe he's not. Well, we shall see.
But maybe he's wrong about some things, which has happened in the past. Stanford and Cal to the Big Ten before Oregon and Washington. Sergeant Pickles, I want 16 teams with first two rounds at home. I predict the attendance for the second round neutral site games will be garbage. Fans don't want to pay for 3 away trips every year. That makes sense. But you're still going to have to take care of those major bowls. Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, et cetera.
That's part of it, yeah.
Sugar Bowl. Those have to be accounted for. Um, and I think there's 5 of them. There's either 5 or 6.
Well, they had multiple because they had ones that were every other year. So I think it was actually
I think it's 6. New Year's 6.
the New Year's 6 bowls, but some of the other ones that would fill in, wasn't there? I'll have to look at it. For some reason I had number 10 in my mind, but it might just be 6. But yeah, in terms of having that many weeks that are all these away games around the country, that's a reasonable worry. Is that it's just not, people aren't going to be at some of those games in the earlier rounds, and that might be why some of the networks are not wanting to show those games.
Genetics is a complete idiot and hack. Big Ten SEC breakout and have 8-team playoff and keep all the cash. I don't think that would ever fly. I think you're going to have to include the Big 12, the ACC, and the G5. Have to. You're going to run into antitrust issues if you guys do that.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I know people kind of look at it and they take it from the numbers that exist right now that we see, and they say, see, look, it makes sense. And I get that. But if you do this, those numbers are going to change. Like for the big viewership games, it's not just viewers for those games. There's general viewership from across the board. And plus then by breaking away and doing their own thing, they're already looking at a whole lot of litigation for some things. I don't see these people who are in charge, who are real people, have to deal with all this shit, wanting to possibly bring even more on their plate in terms of lawsuits and litigation. Like it's a lot to face.
Summit Hawk, let's go Pete Rose. Charlie Hustle, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. That's all I'm saying. He never killed his wife like some people. The big show on the Big 12 Mafia Network. I love it. Hey, stay tuned. Maybe change is coming. Not maybe about it. Trust me, I spent most of my day dealing with it yesterday. Bob Denver had a radio station in West Virginia. That's correct. I think he was from West Virginia originally. He just got tired of people whomping him with their hats. I know that. Sergeant Pickles is a single malt Scotch and bourbon guy, not a rye whiskey fan. And see, I love rye whiskey. Rye whiskey's different from Tennessee whiskey. Tennessee whiskey, sour mash. Summit Hawk, special videos are worth being a member. I agree with you. And we're going to have a new one coming up here shortly. I think by Friday, Bomber and Wild Ute are going to sit down and do how does University of North Carolina fit into the Big Ten? Also on Friday, for all you non-members, we will be making the how does Clemson fit into the Big Ten video public for you guys to watch as well. So,
and remember, folks, while those are geared towards what the Big Ten might be looking for, you could use a lot of those numbers to kind of gear like what value North Carolina would have to, say, the SEC. So it's geared towards the Big Ten with a lot of the academics talk and whatnot, but a lot of that information is very pertinent to their value to the SEC.
Buckshot Kid, when do you see the Big start its own 14 playoff for its championship? I think if you go to 16, I think you're probably limiting your college. You're not going to schedule that.
No,
you're not going to put extra stress on teams that you want to get to the national championship and win.
Yeah, like that's something that I want, and that's something I've talked about multiple times. And I think that it's one or the other. If they're looking to expand the CFP further, then they're not doing a conference postseason, anything really. But if in the end, during this talk, they find it's just too complicated, they can't get everyone on the same board, and while some people think that the Power Two are going to just separate, I don't see that happening. Like you're talking about a lot of in-state legal ramifications with schools and legislatures. It's just problematic. So that's when I could see if it's just too painful, too problematic, that you see like the Big Ten and the SEC want to have their own conference playoffs, which they will sell to the networks for a lot of money. and then everyone else will have to have their own conference playoff, and those will lead into something smaller. So it's really one or the other. It's not both, I don't think.
Ryan Willie with a great question. Wouldn't ESPN put some CFP games on ABC?
I think at some
It
point they're going to
depends.
have to.
You might have to put one or two, but you're still going to have the majority of them are going to be on ESPN, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's how it's been, but it's only been 3 games. When they're moving to this many games, and I think for ESPN to get full ownership of it, I think part of that's going to be beholden on them to put some of it on network TV, just
Or to
get
sublicense some of the games
maybe
out.
that too, because their
to Fox
viewership
or
numbers have been going
CBS.
down. Like
Yeah.
they've not been good compared to the past.
Captain Merrill Stubing, and Immaculate, isn't Clemson a better fit for the big cash compared to Miami? I know Flugar thinks different.
I think that is why Clemson would be looked at by the Big Ten. So I don't mean to be like Clemson doesn't have value. I just worry, like, what is Clemson in 5 or 10 years? You know, if they're down in football, what else are they to the Big Ten? Should that happen with Miami? Should that happen where they don't get better or whatever? School reasons, academic reasons, research reasons, location reasons. There's a lot of other things that still make them valuable. But if you're just taking the 2 top money programs right now with networks and whatnot, yeah, it's Florida State and Clemson. So in terms of that regard, it's not a bad fit. It's just everything else.
Genetics claim the Pac-12 would never die. Even me as a diehard Pac fan said it was unlikely, but not impossible at the time. Yeah. Hey, I don't have a problem with being wrong. I have a problem with covering up that you were wrong.
Yeah.
Like I told Greg Flugar before, you got to eat the L's, don't delete the L's. Too many people like to play fast and loose with deleting things they've said before or retconning them to be something else.
Yeah, if someone, we try not to have any major beefs or anything, but just be careful with folks who are trying to basically say that, they have it all and they know it all, because none of us do. And even if they do have connections, oftentimes the people that they might be talking to don't know it all. So just got to be careful. This stuff is very malleable.
Malleable. That's, as Doug Rohan would put it, that's your SAT word.
There you go.
RFR Mac, a Utah fan, is a future Big 12 member. All of this news does not make me feel very comfortable. You touched upon this briefly on Friday. I'll let you go ahead and reiterate what you had to say on Friday, Immaculate.
Well, that's the intention. But it's not you that they're intending to make feel uncomfortable. It's the administrators at your schools, conferences. They're trying to get things to move quickly. They do not have time. This has to happen this year, and it has to happen sooner rather than later. House versus NCAA is looming in January of next year. That thing, if it goes full on bust, will break these schools and these conferences and the NCAA. So expect a lot of rhetoric coming out that's going to make you shake and worry and fear, because that's the point. It's just you're not the target. So we're just trying to help a little bit and say, realize what's going on. This is a very large, complicated negotiation, and some of it's playing out in public, because what they want to do is they want to affect people who can affect the decision makers, whether it be academia, other administrators, big money donors and boosters. So just realize you're in the middle of a kind of a game being played right now. Talking points you're seeing now, it doesn't mean it's like this or nothing. This is just where they're talking now as part of a negotiation.
So this question from Rock Chalk: why would SEC only consider going to 18 and not to 20?
Cost.
Yeah.
Payouts.
I think there's 18 teams that make sense to have those payouts. There's not 20 teams on the horizon for them that make sense to dilute the payouts.
Yeah.
You only need one team in North Carolina and one team in Virginia to expand your footprint. Those teams would be additive because of it expanding your footprint in the marketplace. doubling up on those teams, you're just going to pay twice as much for the exact same market.
Yep,
Let's
exactly.
see.
I mean, that's why you see SEC people saying, "Oh, we don't want all 4 schools from those 2 states. We just want 2," because there is 4 parts instead of just 2 parts. It's more of a political situation that might make it happen. If the SEC has their way, though, they're only taking 2.
Bobby Madden can't see 16 team college football playoff as you'll want standalone CFP games, but can see 14 teams with 2 play-in games as an extension to 5+7 CFP with bottom 4 non-conference championship games. A through L last year would have been Oklahoma, Ole Miss versus LSU, Penn State University as the 2 play-in games. I mean, that's a possibility. I just don't know.
I kind of see the 14-team thing as being a compromise decision with 2 buys. That would then leave 12 teams playing in the first round, which gets cut down to 6 after the losers. Then you add in your 2 buys for 8 teams, and then you're down to 4, and then you're down to 2. So the math works, and then it'd also be kind of a compromise that the Big Ten and the SEC likely get their buys, and then no one else does. So I don't know how great that is, but that's kind of what I see. In terms of there being play-in games, and I haven't really thought in that direction. You might be right, but that when I was seeing the 14-2 talk, that's kind of what I was thinking, is that it'd be a compromise to give Big Ten and SEC something while not going fully to 16.
Payson Cougar fan, good to see you. FCS 2014 format is best. Top 8 first round bye. 23 games you can place wherever, home or in old bowl games.
It's a long format. With the FCS, they don't compete against the NFL. They're not getting all those games on TV, so it's just not a big deal. It's just an event. For the FBS, who's trying to get a lot of money out of that, that makes for a very long tournament that is definitely going to conflict with the NFL. So maybe it just seems a little too long.
Fox is going to get some. You guys look great. Well, thank you, Nathan.
Hey.
I appreciate it. I take off my captain's hat to you, but I'm the captain now.
It's the Love Boat. You've decided.
I like the SS Moen. I like the Gilligan's Island analogy better. Neither of these guys are Nathan. Thank you for noticing.
True comment.
True.
That is an absolute fact.
One of these guys looks like he ate Nathan, but
this is Moen After Dark. This is just our little chat show that's on the network.
This is our enclave. Nathan says 16 team first round home games by 2026. You might be right, Nate. Might be right.
That's where the talk's going. I mean, if that's true, we'll see. I mean, it's definitely up in the air
now. Missed the 24 minutes of show recap for first part.
Wonderful.
Please.
This is the Love Boat. Welcome to the Love Boat.
Yes, or Gilligan's Island,
or one or the other. If you want to be stranded with us, or if you want to be going somewhere with us, your choice.
Yeah.
We're just getting into the talk from the ESPN and Dinich about the meetings coming up and what they're going to be talking about for the CFP. And they have a new payout scale for the 24-25 games and for the participants, as well as possible talk about it moving to 16 teams in the future in 26.
Yeah. And thank you for the super chat, Mooncat. It's always appreciated. Go Mountaineers. Glenn Lumen's in the house. Good to see you, Glenn. Hope everything's doing well for you in the Philippines. I think you eliminate the conference championships and go to 16-team seeded playoff. That would eliminate the addition game and avoid rematches. You may still end up with some rematches there in that 16-team seeded playoff. It could happen, especially with all the brands that have accumulated in the Big Ten and the SEC. What do you think?
Yeah, that is absolutely. And like we were saying, if you're going to this point and you're going to have these home games in the first round, a conference championship might be eliminating one of your top teams and putting them out of the home game realm and making them play in an away game in that first round, which is a much bigger disadvantage. Plus, there's tickets. Like the home teams getting extra money for playing at home. So, yeah, it starts to look detrimental.
Ryan Willie, if Nathan changes the branding, would members need to join new channel? No, we're just going to put a little new paint on it. Little new paint. Can't see 16 teams CFP as you'll want standalone. Oh, I already did this one. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
The conferences are becoming tribalism. In the long run, that will hurt TV ratings as fans will only watch their individual leagues. I don't think so. I love to watch college football. Regardless, if there's a 3:30 game that's a top game in the SEC, I'll watch it. Now, will I flip back and forth between that and a Purdue Indiana game? Yeah, I will, because I'm a glutton for punishment and I want to watch that riveting Purdue Indiana game. But generally, I watch whatever the best game available is. Iowa State, I like to watch a lot of Iowa State games, just because for some reason we get Iowa State programmed to us here in Ohio. I don't understand it, but we tend to get Iowa State. I watch a lot of West Virginia games. I think you're going to have some tribalism, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think. I really don't. You're just not going to get enough good matchups every week.
No, but where that I think that cuts in is if like what people are fearing, which I don't think is going to happen. But what they're fearing is that conferences are going to get cut out, or the Power Two are going to leave everyone behind. Well, then they're actually losing the crossover viewership of fans from those other conferences. They're going to look at that and go, I mean, not everyone. Some people will still go and watch them, but you're going to lose fans. You're not really gaining fans by doing that. You're losing crossover fans. So it's just, God, it just sounds like a terrible business idea, to be honest.
Yeah. They're not going to leave anybody behind. They're going to bring them along. That's my firm belief. I don't think anybody's getting left behind.
No, they're just squabbling over how pay cuts and how much you're going to give versus us, and we want a little bit better deal, so we're going to threaten to leave, but we won't if you give us this, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, everybody's coming along. We're just all not sharing the same car. Yeah. Great question from Daniel Gygax. How many schools do you think will have to drop down if the SCOTUS goes against the NCAA?
Oh, okay. I saw his comment explaining this as well. So what he's meaning is dropping down to like FCS, or if this forms a new division. That's a really good question. That's pretty hard to answer at this point. It's going to be, how much you have to spend, or what are these costs going to be? In my opinion, I actually think it might grow. We've talked about this previously with the NCAA and how they changed the cost from moving up from the FCS to the FBS from $5,000 to $5 million. They're planning on taxing some folks. So I actually think it might be going in the other direction, and the cost or entry to actually run at that level may not be quite as much as people fear. I don't think they're bothering to do that if they don't think there's going to be much movement.
Have you talked about the Iowa recruiting scandal yet? That program is out of control. They're
it's a new world. Iowa? It's a new world. Yeah, he's talking about Caden with the hope you're doing okay. Breaking the rules.
Level 3 violation on that one.
They went like that. And, ouch.
Yeah, recruiting was a little bit down at Ohio State, but then we signed another 5-star today. So,
we could find a few more mil.
He's only the number 1 cornerback in the class next year. So,
yeah, Ohio State's everyone is playing in a new world, even Stanford. That's something to talk about too. If someone asks a question, hint, hint.
If someone asks a question about Stanford, which will never happen.
Hint, hint.
Big 12 gets Clemson, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, and Louisville. That's a home run. Raises the yearly value and keeps Pitt out. It's definitely a home run, but I think you're going to want Pitt in there.
I mean, he's not wrong. Like, if those 4 are open, you're not taking Pitt.
I have a hard time believing you would take North Carolina State over Pitt.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I'd take North Carolina State over Pitt in a heartbeat, especially if I was the Big 12.
You got the backyard brawl. You got a built-in brand there, rivalry. I'd take Pittsburgh. And the academics. The academics will bring you up.
I'd say, you know what? I know that's a rivalry, but I'm going West Virginia versus Louisville and West Virginia versus Virginia Tech and West Virginia versus North Carolina State. And what the hell? I mean, I just think that that's building for the future. I get what you're saying. That rivalry game means something. But in terms of just pure value, I think that lineup right there is probably about as good as it could get for the Big 12.
I don't know. I can't stand that the backyard brawl isn't every single season.
I get it. I get it as a fan, and especially you're in that area and you know that really well. But just, I think that lineup right there is probably the most valuable one that the Big 12 could get.
Notre Dame to the Big Ten coming soon. Sure.
No.
Sure.
They made their bed. They have said what they want.
Soon, 2029. Coos is in the house. Good to see you, Coos. Hello,
Yes.
gentlemen.
Hey, Coos.
There you go. Pitt is a bigger rival to West Virginia University, but Virginia Tech is second, and Virginia is a better market. I don't disagree with you. I think Pitt deserves to. I think Pitt belongs in the same conference as West Virginia.
I mean, and I get it as like, and maybe West Virginia would get their way in that regard. It's like, so who? I'm curious, Coos, if you can answer this in the chat, we'll throw it up here as well. But who would you remove from that foursome then? Would you remove Louisville? Would you remove Virginia Tech, North Carolina State? Maybe Clemson's not even available and it's not a big deal and doesn't matter. But just curious, who would be your maxed out foursome that you could grab?
Yeah, I get North Carolina State. I get adding a North Carolina market, but Pittsburgh has the rivalry. It has the academic that'll boost you. For media, which has greater TV value in the 16-team college football playoff? 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, etc. Have at least one top team, or having 9 versus 16, 10 versus 15 for more competitive initial games.
I think he's right.
In a 1 or 2 week buy system, 1 through 4, 5 through 8.
100%. I think that by going so much bigger and having your top teams play these, those are, generally speaking, people aren't going to be enthused for those. Those could end up being good games, but if people are already not planning to watch them in as large numbers, it doesn't matter if it's a good game or not. I think that was kind of the part about having your top 4 teams get a bye is it improves your first round of games. So yeah, the 16 team, I still have big questions about how viable that actually is. We'll see.
I see. Now I think it should be 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, etc. Because I want to see the upsets. I want to see a number 16 knock off a number 1, a number 15 knock off a number 2. I want the same excitement we get for the NCAA March Madness. Tony Lawson, NCAA hockey has a 16-team tournament, but they have a policy that schools in the same conference cannot play each other in the first round. Could football implement that? Yeah, I think they could. I don't see any reason why not, other than seeding purposes. I mean, if it's...
Yeah, that's the tough part. It's the seeding part. People are going to, look what we saw with this year's, with who got left out, who got brought in. People are going to jump very quickly to say something's rigged or whatever. So it's tough. I mean, it makes logical sense. I just wonder if they'd be a little gun shy at actually doing that.
Jeff Woodworth's here. Good to see you, Jeff. Happy Sunday, everyone. Well, not that happy. There is no football, so how happy can it be? Well, hey, you had the Pro Bowl games, or whatever they call it now, the All-Pro.
Football players playing dodgeball.
Yeah, with the flag football. I saw a highlight of C.J. Stroud throwing an awesome pass to Jamar Chase. The NCAA basketball tournament tries to keep conference members from playing each other from playing until the Sweet 16. Well, there you go. Tony Washington's taking North Carolina State over Pitt.
I agree with Tony. I mean, I get the emotional connection to it. I just think that just pure value and what you're going to hand to Mr. Yormark, I think North Carolina State would be better.
Pitt is the ACC version of Utah. No thanks. Well, I'll tell you what. I really want to see the ratings for next year because I think Utah's ratings are going to be strong from hate watching. I think every Big 12 fan base that's not Utah is going to watch Utah games hoping they lose. I think they're going to be very strong ratings-wise because someone in Iowa State is going to be watching them to see if they lose to Kansas State.
The worst emotion when it comes to these sports is apathy. People not caring. So if everyone hates Utah, that's great. Like it's better to be hated than no one caring about you at all when it comes to this. Like Ohio State. Everyone who's not Ohio State hates them. But at the same time, I mean, we understand their value. But Utah could be that for the Big 12 maybe.
MH5, I just want to see upset. Sure, they're long shots, but I love seeing Boise State beat OU, App State beating Michigan. Remember 2007. I'm with you, MH5. I want to see it. I know it's not going to happen often. It's not, but I'd love to see it because, most of your G5s are probably going to be in that 14, 15, 16 seed.
But aren't we more likely to get that with the way it is this coming season, the 12-team system we have now? Are we more likely to get what you're looking for in that first round the way it is now versus if we were doing 1 versus 16? Well,
you'll get a 12 versus 5.
Yeah. And it's still going to be an upset if that 12 beats the 5.
Still an upset, but it's not Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson upset.
No, but much more likely to happen. And if that team wins that game and is going forward with momentum, and then they're going up against a 1 or a 2 or whatever, well, then you might get 2. But just first round, like a 1 versus 16, just looking in a year who's actually rated 16th and decide if there's much chance of that happening. Right? So I don't think so. But I get the feeling. And if that was to happen, that would be a pretty amazing moment.
All right. Well, Daniel Gygax has no love for Pitt. As a Mountaineer, Pitt ruined the Big East. They can suffer in the AAC. All right.
Hey.
I think it's a little harsh. I'd like to see them play every year, but Virginia Tech, Spit, and UL would all be awesome for WVU. There's another Mountaineer fan who wants to see Pitt in there. Coos would be okay with either, but want either Pitt or Virginia Tech. You got to have one or the other.
See, I think the rivalry of the future for West Virginia in that situation is Virginia Tech. If I was West Virginia, and I know I'm not, and I don't have that emotional connection and the hate and all of that, but that's what I would want. I wouldn't want to ever go to the professional stadium to play those games, or I would want the team that has an electric home game atmosphere so you can go there for that. Your team can go there and experience that. I mean, VT and West Virginia are very close, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like distance-wise, it's not that far apart.
Blacksburg to Morgantown, I think it's probably less than 300 miles. And probably significantly even less than that when I think about it.
And West Virginians are in other areas of West Virginia are much closer than that. So it's, I think that would be a great rivalry to build up for the future.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. We got 100 people watching live. If you all would, could you give us a like on the stream there? That helps us so much with the algorithm. If you're watching on demand tomorrow, because I know there's another show running, go ahead and leave a comment down below. We all interact in the comments. We try to answer your questions in there as well. If you're feeling generous, by all means, you can gift a membership. You can become a member, or you can leave a super chat right there in the chat by hitting the little dollar icon in the bottom of the chat window, and I won't say anything else about it for another hour. Kuz's Corner. That's a tough question, guys. I think Virginia Tech, Louisville, and North Carolina State bring more value, but the backyard brawl is huge and would be great for the conference.
I get it. But if the Virginia Tech game could become that in, say, I don't know, 10 years or so, isn't that better for the future? If it's, I mean, it comes down to, like, are you getting Clemson or not? Are you even getting Virginia Tech, North Carolina State? There's a lot of what ifs. I just think that if you're maximum value, if you're really trying to close the gap between, the other two conferences, I think, Clemson, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Ville is your best possible combination you could get.
Cleveland Rocks. Good to see you, Cleveland Rocks. Immaculate. You have stated previously that North Carolina State and North Carolina could not separate. However, there's a tremendous amount of animosity between each other. I believe they can and will break away.
Well, I just want to iterate. I'm not saying 100% they can't separate. I'm saying that it sounds like the North Carolina Board of Governors is saying they very much want to see them stay together. I do think that this early in the process, they're going to face a hard road to try to separate. Now, later on down the road, should things not work out, maybe just Florida State joins the Big Ten and one other, and say the ACC starts to fall apart, ESPN says they're not going to continue, and something happens that changes their mind. At that point in time, the SEC might be competing with the Big Ten for North Carolina and Virginia if it becomes available that those two can leave on their own. So that's why I say North Carolina State and Virginia Tech with them to the SEC, if the SEC wants to make sure that they don't have to compete with the Big Ten. And that's my point on that.
Right. Immaculate. More and more, I feel like the SEC will stay where they are because they don't want Virginia Tech or North Carolina State.
For now.
Just pretty much talked about that.
Yep, I think that would be a mistake, but I could see them doing that. I mean, they self-served themselves and basically pushed FSU to the Big Ten, so I'm not going to be surprised if they do something similar like that.
C. John, good to see you, C. John. Howdy, fellas. So in your, I think, opinion, what's more ads are valuable to these conferences for the SEC, Clemson or Miami? I think I'll let you answer that part first. What do you want, Clemson or Miami in that?
I mean, if I'm the SEC, I'm thinking Clemson. But, I mean, Miami's, I don't know. I guess that's a toss-up. I don't think
I think it's Clemson. I think it's Clemson based on the brand.
Yeah, I don't think Florida would want Miami. I don't think Florida wants Florida State either.
Yeah.
But I think if they had to choose, they'd want Florida State over Miami. So Clemson, because, South Carolina is probably not going to get everyone to say no. In terms of the big, A&M and Notre Dame, Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's slam dunk.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that A&M is not high
Right.
value. I'm not as strong on that being a possibility, but I mean, if they wanted to, then yeah, I think it would be possible. My problem is A&M actually being ready to pull that trigger. They might talk about it, but I don't know if they'd pull the trigger. Virginia Tech or GT for the Big 12, Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
but no,
Georgia Tech's a big
Atlanta,
market.
But Virginia Tech is just right now. What Big Ten needs is great showcasing on TV, and Virginia Tech is going to give you a better atmosphere for TV, a better kind of quality for that. So I would go Virginia Tech, but that's right now. I mean, maybe Yormark with what he's seen, and he wants to get in the Atlanta market, and he says GT. That's a close one.
Be a good travel partner for UCF too.
Yeah.
A 1 seed has beat, I think it's reversed. A 16 seed has beat a 1 seed twice in the history of the NCAA. But my God, who doesn't remember getting the ESPN notification and immediately switching the channel to watch UMBC beat UVA? History happened. Yep, that's one of the greatest things about March Madness. You see a lot of times twos losing to 15s. Those huge upsets that just absolutely should not happen. They can happen. Could happen in college football too.
But just keep something in mind real quick on that if we could. In basketball, what we've seen in the top teams, the top programs, they get a lot of what we call one and dones. which are great talents, and when they're on, they're good. But these kids are younger, and we've seen them lose to teams that are dominated by seniors and whatnot, but maybe aren't as well known or a lower seed. So I think a 16 seed beating a 1 seed in the NCAA basketball tournament is a lot easier to do than a 16 seed beating a 1 seed in the CFP. I think it's a very big difference.
But it could happen.
Could, yeah, 100% possible. I would put a much lower percentage.
Pitt rents a pro stadium and has bad attendance. Hokie fan base are crazy about the chickens. I agree. I'm not saying don't take Virginia Tech. I'm saying North Carolina State. I'd rather have Pitt in the Big 12 than North Carolina State. I'd rather have Pitt and Virginia Tech in the Big 12. I think West Virginia has been long forgotten by the Big 12 in terms of expansion, and they need to have some candidates that favor West Virginia for once. So, just my opinion.
Yep, I kind of already spoke similar on that. So that's a
Conundrum. Utah's a 4-letter word, but so is Iowa, and so is Ohio. So
he actually says that right afterwards.
yeah. Big 12 isn't getting Clemson, in my opinion. I don't disagree.
Well, then that makes the whole question moot. Like if you don't think you're getting Clemson, then yeah, Pitt's coming in.
Jason Spangler. Good to see you, Jason. I like Georgia Tech more than Virginia Tech.
Okay. I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, that's a fair opinion. I'm sure he has his reasons. Maybe it's Atlanta, Southern recruiting, all of the above.
Ryan Willie would love to see Youngstown State beat Ohio State. I don't think Youngstown State would be in it. Youngstown State isn't FBS. I think they're FCS still.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be in it. But don't worry, they'll have their opportunity. I'm sure Ohio State will schedule them again within the next 10 years. Black Diamond Trophy game. That's the name of the rivalry between West Virginia and Virginia Tech. Mooncat misses it. I don't disagree. If I'm your mark and the right teams are available, I'd seriously consider going to 22 teams. I think if the right teams are available, you can go to 24.
This early, though?
I think you would. If you're the Big 12, if you're behind the 8 ball, I mean, bold moves.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends upon their business dealings with ESPN and Fox. If they all know where they're going and where they're trying to get to, and they need to do this sooner rather than later, then yeah, I mean, that to me seems like what the Big 12 is meant to be. It's meant to be this catch-all to bring all these programs in that still have plenty of value and that the networks still want to deal with, but just at a lower pay than the top two. So yeah, I mean, I could almost maybe see them going up higher than 20 before the other two conferences for sure.
The 22 teams right away is unlikely, but Big taking Miami, Florida State, Clemson, and GT would take out SEC at the kneecaps. I agree, but I don't think they would go up to 22 right away for the Big Ten because they're not really competing from they don't need 4 teams. They only need 2. They'll take 3 if Notre Dame would come along. That would be their preference.
Yeah, I think it's FSU to 19, FSU plus 1 to 20. And like you're saying, FSU plus 1 to 20, and then maybe also Notre Dame. If Notre Dame was to say, you have to take Miami to get us, that would be, I still consider that Miami, if that's what it is, that's Notre Dame bait. So I could see it 21 at max with Notre Dame.
Jess, the big presidents were told last week to get ready for a breakaway for football and basketball. I have not seen that reported.
I mean, there's people saying things. Maybe that's true. And it's also one thing. It's good to prepare for things that might be an eventuality. Doesn't always mean it's 100% happening. But just to kind of you don't want to be caught flat-footed should
Right.
things really break down. I mean, House versus NCAA is real. if they have to, they will. I just don't think they'll have to.
Yeah, Jess, if you could give me a source on that, I'd love to read that. I hadn't heard that reported yet. Mike Smith, Backwoods Sexy in the house. Hey, thank you. Oh, you're talking about yourself. Okay.
Yes, that's Mike. I had to say hi to Mike. I saw him come in.
Jared Jones is here, fellow Buckeye. Good to see you, Jared. Did you hear that we got another 5-star, Jared? I know it's a day that ends in Y. We've got to get a 5-star.
That Iowa is talking with a 5-star. Oh, yeah. How about that?
They're talking. We put a ring on it.
Yeah, he's a legacy, so that explains it.
Moen and Immaculate, please put a percentage on the chances of at least 6 teams leaving the ACC within 2 years. Which teams are most probable? 6.
Percentage in 2 years? I'm not going to go 100%. Nothing's absolute. Going higher than 75. 85%.
Okay. And what are your 6 most probable?
Florida State. At this point, I'm going to go Miami. North Carolina, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville.
Okay.
Clemson.
Okay. I don't think the odds are that high, but I think a lot of this will be determined on what Florida State ends up having to pay to get out. I think if it's exceeding $200 million, I think there's a lot of schools that won't pay that. That'll stick around and take some of that money up. So I would put my percentage at 55% for 6 teams. I think 4 teams, much higher percentage. My 6 most probable would be Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Louisville.
And we don't have a whole lot behind this, so we'll sit on this phone here for a little bit. I just want to preface by saying I don't think it's going to be just 6. I think it's actually going to be more. But I was trying to find 6. I think what you're going to end up seeing is kind of a similar effect that happened after Colorado. When this FSU thing breaks, you're going to see a tone change. You're going to see schools that are like, oh, we're good, or all things are good. Things aren't good. The whole worry about ESPN dropping them in 2027, they're going to be thinking that. I think schools are going to want to get out. So I think it's actually more than that. But if it just happened to be 6, that would, to me, would mean 2 to each conference. Because, yes, I do think that even the Big 12 would still get 2 out of the 6. That would just mean the SEC was only taking 2. That's why I say UNC, Virginia. And then I'm thinking the 2 that would most quickly want to join the Big 12, I think Louisville is like, us, now, let's go. And then the other one is probably the only other one who is probably also really interested in going somewhere, and that's Clemson. So at that point, and then after that, Virginia Tech and North Carolina side are probably quickly out the door as well. But that's the 6, and that's why I say that, because it's 2 to each conference.
Well, Clemson still hasn't made a move yet. We know that Greg listed the window, and we haven't seen anything happen yet. So I don't think Clemson has a landing spot. I really don't. I think they thought it was a slam dunk initially to the Big Ten. I think with Miami coming into the picture, I think that they're worried.
And good reason. Like I said, I mean, Clemson has a lot of value right now. Unfortunately for them, last year happened. And what we saw last season was they didn't do as well. Their performance wasn't as good. And their ratings went down. Whereas what we've seen with Florida State in the past is even when they weren't doing well, their ratings were still about the same. So it starts to look like, okay, you have a school that does not have, a big name for research. It doesn't have a big name for academics. It doesn't have, people say it's close to Atlanta, it's close to Charlotte, but there's other schools that pull more from there. It's just, it's kind of a risk. So I don't think it's there. I don't think the SEC's enthused about having them. So, yeah, I think that maybe they thought that they were going to have more interest in them than what they're actually getting.
Jared Jones, number 1 and number 2 CB in 2025, offered in Sanchez. That's correct. Number 1 and number 2 cornerbacks are off the board to Ohio State. Rock Chalk 94, the amount of people who don't understand how TV deals and grant of rights deals work is mind-numbing. And then he follows it up with, there's these ACC fans that think ESPN controls the grant of rights. That's between the conference and its members, not the networks. That's correct.
Yeah, the Gore's directly related to the media deal. If that media deal goes away or has to get renegotiated, then that Gore is basically done because they'd have to sign a new grant of rights for whatever new deal is signed. So that's where that comes into play, is that if ESPN forces a renegotiation or we're going to drop you in 2027, hello, new Gore.
Rock Chalk, ESPN is also not guaranteed to pick up the 2027 ACC option. That's 100% correct.
I think as it stands now, they're not planning to. Of course, we don't
at
know
the
that.
Current value, at least, yes. If you lose Florida State, you lose Miami, you lose in North Carolina, you've lost, I'd say, at least 40% of your value in those 3 schools. And Clemson. You've lost 40% of your value in those 4 schools. Oh, Conundrum's got some good news for you. Thomas Meyer, 4-star athlete, just committed. Go Hawks.
Must be that amazing offensive coordinator signing that they got.
Hey, my offensive coordinator might already be leaving, so.
I know that's how good Ohio State is you stop in there for a week or two and you're ready for a head coach position.
Yeah, someone explained it to me that his family still lives in Boston, apparently. Bill O'Brien's family still lives in Boston. His son has some kind of illness, so he might want to get back there to be closer to his family. So if he decides to go, well,
it's Boston College. There's not like some huge expectation on you.
Well, that's what I said, too, in return. I was like, with Boston College, even when you win, they don't support you.
No, so if you've got those family issues going on and you're focusing on that, Boston College probably isn't going to come kicking you in the butt and saying, get out on the road and get us a winning team and do all that. I mean, it's just, make us competitive. That's what they want.
Yeah. I mean, the last coach took them to 3 bowl games in a row. They still
make them tough, make them competitive, pull off a win or 2 here that are shocking, and they're cool with you.
Oh, Mike Smith, Bill O'Brien leaves, Ohio State brings in Neil Brown.
Stirring the pot.
I don't think so. I think you're stuck with them. I think Jason Candle's a good candidate out of Toledo. Until Penn hits paper, high school commitments aren't worth a hill of beans. Even then, they may get their cash and be gone right away. Well, maybe. I mean, you never know, but it's pretty telling, Sergeant Pickles, that we go into Alabama and get the number 1 recruit out of Alabama. That would not have happened 3 months ago. That's what we're playing with now. Alabama, everything in the South is now up for grabs for everybody. Used to be you would have to compete with Alabama and Georgia. Now you're just competing with Georgia, and Georgia only has so many roster spots for these kids. So a team like Ohio State, your Michigans, your Penn States, your USCs, they can go in there and start recruiting a lot of these Southern kids a lot more easily.
That's why it just boggles my mind. I cannot believe the SEC is allowing the Big Ten to work their way into the South. You look at the way the game is changing with NIL, transfer portals, it's already affecting these teams. How many kids are transferring out of those schools and going off elsewhere? It's easy to get those kids in the past signed coming out of high school because all they know is the South and all the schools down there and the coaches that come. But nowadays, you're there for a little bit and you see what the competition is going to be and you want to play right away, you might go somewhere else. Having places down south where Ohio State can play, where Michigan can play, Nebraska can play, that's a big deal for their family members who might want to see their kid play once or twice, in their collegiate time at least. They probably want to watch them play more than that, but at least there's that. So it makes options of going elsewhere a little more viable. So that's where we're seeing it go.
Yeah, BC could get more eyes now that the Pats stink again. The Pats have stunk the last 2 seasons, and Boston College still hasn't got eyes on it.
I don't think Boston College replacing that.
That's a hockey school. They like their hockey. ESPN down in Kansas, ESPN will forego extending the ACC beyond 2027 and instead use that money to pay the best ACC teams that move to the SEC Big 12. Get back to your point on this. Why would the SEC allow the Big 10 into the South?
Mm-hmm.
They can't keep them out.
No, they can't.
You can't block them completely. They're going to get somebody. If they take Florida State, if the SEC takes Florida State, are they going to take Miami too?
Yeah, but Miami is a much different situation than Tallahassee. And I'm talking
so
city location.
While you're defending Tallahassee, you're leaving North Carolina unprotected.
But that's not really SEC grounds right now. It's where they want to expand into. But that's not a shot deep into your heart. That's like a periphery. Okay, yeah, we want to get there. We don't want them there. But that's not really getting into the heart of the South. Tallahassee is the heart of the South. I mean, that's your northern panhandle of Florida, right off the border of Georgia, off the border of Alabama, right down the highway from Louisiana, Mississippi. Like, you are right there to touch upon all of that. If there was one team, one school to block the Big Ten from getting, in my opinion, we talked about this, it was Florida State. And in their kind of short-sighted nature of trying to get the number one, TV-rated team into the playoff, okay, but you pissed off a lot of FSU boosters and money people who are now who would have pushed Florida State to the SEC, who are now like, all right, screw them, we'll go to the Big Ten. That's fine. Like, it's an emotional decision, and people with a lot of money sometimes like to call it FU money. So, FU, I guess.
If the ACC implodes, does the AAC grow, or some schools go back to the Big East like UConn did? I don't know. I think the ACC stays intact and just backfills. I think they just backfill. I think the AAC shrinks.
I think
we'll have to see what SMU happens tomorrow. If they tell SMU you're not getting paid extra money, that might not be a reality then.
Yeah, and I think SMU is hostage right now. They're caught in the middle of a bigger play. Like, it's not really about them, but AACC agreed to do something very unorthodox. And SMU probably needs that money as part of their plan on how they could survive at doing what they're doing. So that makes this a leverage point, and someone is pushing that. So we'll see how that plays out maybe this week. But, I think that ACC does not implode fully because most of those schools, they don't have a place upwards, so to say. So why would they go downwards? So they just have to figure out how to make that work. So it's backfilling, whether it's backfilling with mostly AAC schools, which likely makes the ACC look like a less than Power 4 or 5, whatever you want to call it, or something a little more extreme that we've talked about, and we'll see how that goes.
Cleveland Rock wants to know, how fast will Ryan Day get the boot if they don't win the Big Ten next year? 1 minute or just 30 seconds after the season is over? Well, listen, it's not about winning the Big Ten next year. It's about beating Michigan. If he loses to Michigan, he's gone. That's the end of it. He can win every game, and if he loses to Michigan, he is gone. And that might not seem fair to a lot of people, but that's just the way it is at Ohio State. You can't afford to lose to Michigan especially not after Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer went in there and ripped off all the success they ripped off in their tenures as coach. Between the two of them, was 15 out of the last 17 before Michigan won their first one 3 years ago. I mean, that's pretty impressive in this rivalry. And there were some good Michigan teams that they beat. I know there was the Rich Rod years, but there were still some good Michigan teams that got beat in that cycle. And Jim Harbaugh left Michigan. He did not have a winning record against Ohio State. He had a winning record against Ryan Day, but not Ohio State. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. For the backyard brawl, Pitt sells out. Plus, Pitt, West Virginia is close enough for Bob Huggins to go through a couple six-packs. There's nothing funny about drunk driving, but that was a funny joke.
Fair enough.
Besides, he wasn't in Pittsburgh. He was in Ohio. Or was he? He was in Pittsburgh, but he thought he was in Ohio.
Yeah, I don't know the whole story. I've just kind of heard the whole drive thing. Wasn't he just at their game again here recently? I don't know.
He might have been. I mean, he's a good basketball coach, but boy, he's got a problem with the alcohol.
Oh, he was looking thinner. Maybe he had gotten that out.
I hope so. I hope he got some help. It's a new world. He has one good year, and a top school offers him big cash to go.
I think they're talking about that Iowa tight end that signed.
Yeah, and then Conundrum comes back. He's a tight end from Iowa attending tight end university. Kittle, Fant, Hawkinson, Laporta, see a pattern. Yeah, they produce good tight ends at Iowa.
Even Alabama would do, like, they would be watching who Iowa was looking at for positions like that. And whoever they started to tip their hand on who they're going after, Alabama would come driving up there and try and steal them away in the night. So, yeah, someone might come and try and take him now. But he's an Iowa guy, so they got a good chance of keeping him.
No argument here, but I'm not going to pretend I'm not excited about that until that does or doesn't happen. We always get great recruiting classes. We may lose some, but we'll keep the majority. And then flip some our way before National Signing Day. That's true. Or they can take the money and go be 6-6 in Miami. I am admittedly jaded about it. All it took is UW's head coach leaving, and the entire roster was destroyed in a week. Same rules allowed us to gut Arizona and rebuild it.
That's new future. It's gonna have to look at hiring coaches maybe a little bit differently. Look for guys who might be a little more loyal.
Now here's a fun one.
Yeah, we can get into this.
Let me grab my bottle for this. Yeah, because we might have to pour one down my throat for Chip Kelly here. Chip Kelly. I have never seen a man who has a job as a head coach want to get out of that job more to become an offensive coordinator that he even does it in college football ranks. That is astounding to me.
It's UCLA.
It's UCLA, and apparently, from what I am to understand, Chip Kelly was told that they had the money in the offseason to fire him, but they chose to keep him. Now, why you would tell somebody that and continue their employment is beyond me.
Terrible.
You've given them every reason in the world to screw around and fuck you over. That's why they walk people out when they get fired. Security collects them and walks them out.
Like, he's not going to put his all into it.
Yeah.
Like,
why bother?
I mean, they already kind of put his one arm behind his back. I mean, they have recruiting restrictions in terms of standards that they want players coming in to uphold in terms of academics and whatnot. Okay, great, but you're not Stanford. I mean, UCLA is a great school, don't get me wrong, but if you're really trying to compete, and in a way in which a coach like Chip Kelly wants to, it's not really conducive to doing that. And so then you also talk about him getting fired and all this going on. Yeah, there was talk about him coming to Iowa. Like, he was trying to reach out to Ferentz about the offensive coordinator position at Iowa, which kind of worried me a little bit. But Chip Kelly is actually the type of personality that would fit in there. As crazy as that is, most people think of him as this, eccentric personality, but he's really not. He's actually very simple. He might have been good at it too. So, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, I will just say this: Ryan Day and Chip Kelly have connections. They're connected to each other. Ryan Day was his quarterback when he was a coach at, I want to say, Connecticut. And he got Ryan Day his starting coaching. So if Bill O'Brien is out, it would not stun me to see
That would
Chip
probably
Kelly
happen like
brought
that.
in. Yeah.
Because he could probably get the same money as an offensive coordinator at Ohio State that he gets as a head coach at UCLA. Not the same amount, but you know what I'm saying? Like he could probably get, what, a mil? $2 mil there as an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, easily.
He's probably getting, what, 4 at UCLA?
Yeah, but I think it's more about the fact that they basically told him that he's expendable. I think he would do
I'm
it.
just saying, like, even like when you start to get bonuses and like when you go certain far and you get certain things done, you get bonuses and increased pay. You could probably get up there, getting close to what he's going to get with UCLA.
Well, he might go to Alabama too. You know, Ryan Grubb is supposedly interviewing for that OC job in Seattle to join the Seahawks. So that leaves a gaping hole for Kalen DeBoer. So that's got to be filled.
Kalen, he might be taking a big step back here after a couple of years.
Yeah, I think he's taken a gigantic step back. Nick Saban cannot be happy with how things have changed since.
Word was Saban wanted Grubb for himself.
Yeah.
Like he came trying to get Grubb as his offensive coordinator, and Grubb was loyal to DeBoer. And it kind of feels like they went with DeBoer because they knew Grubb would come in with him, and Grubb is like the guy behind the guy.
Yeah.
And so if he's losing Grubb, Saban's not going to be happy about that.
We'll have to see who wins there. But that's my thoughts on Chip Kelly. I think if Bill O'Brien does leave Ohio State, I think the call would be to Chip Kelly. I like Jason Candle at Toledo too, but I think it would probably come down to those two candidates, Chip Kelly or Jason Candle. And if they have, and I'm almost 100% certain that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have connections, Chip Kelly would be the pick at the Ohio State University.
I mean, if he has Ohio State and Alabama both looking at him, I mean, I'm just going to say he's probably gone.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Ohio State's looking at him yet. Until Bill O'Brien leaves, Bill O'Brien's the offensive.
Yeah, but they probably know. Like, if Bill's looking to go, they probably know.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't even been there yet. So.
And then guess what? UCLA is going to have a terrible time this season. You imagine having to hire a coach in February? Imagine all the recruits you've lost. Imagine how those kids that are going to hit the portal.
2 out of 4 of the new members of the Big Ten coming from the West. Mm-hmm. Getting kind of decimated like that in the coaching. That's one of those situations that's rough. I mean, you're coming into a brand new conference. Like, one thing, Washington's bad, but they've had some time to respond, to get in their new coach, for him to try to right the ship and get some guys. The way this is going, UCLA is like at the end of the bus. I mean, what do you do at that point in time? Who's available? Who can you get? I mean, you're going to lose a bunch of players, a lot. And where are you getting their replacements from?
Tony Lawson brings up a great point. Is there any chance that Cliff Kingsbury slips into that UCLA job? I don't think so. I think he is gung-ho on that Washington Commanders OC position because I think they've let him know that they're going to approach trying to get Caleb as their draft pick. So I think he wants to continue working with Caleb, and Washington's trying to trade up to get that number 1 draft spot to get him. So I think he's geared in on that Commander's position that's open.
Yeah, people talking like how the Bears aren't going to trade it off. That's draft day work. That's if they're saying hard that they're not going to trade it, then they're probably open to trading, and they're just saying that's basically nope. You've got to give us more.
Yeah, I've seen the proposed trade, and it's a first this year, which is the number 2 spot, and then a first next season and a third this year. I think that's a good pick. I think you're going to stick with Justin Fields if you do that, and you're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. as number 2 overall.
Yeah, there's no way that Caleb is better than the combination of Fields and Harrison Jr.
Harrison and
Like-
DJ Moore.
Right. I was just saying like that. You consider that like if you're taking Caleb, you're getting rid of Fields, and you're also probably losing out on the chance to get Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, the combo of Fields and Jr. is way better than Caleb. Nothing against Caleb, but Fields has shown himself to be a good quarterback, and Harrison is probably, if anyone coming out with the potential to be a Hall of Famer every year, that's Harrison. I mean, he's a legacy. He knows what he's got to do. He's got his father there. And he's got all the genetics. I mean, that guy is just a monster. So yeah, I someone from the Bears would have to be moved out of ownership position if they were so dumb as to do what it took to get Caleb. That would be silly.
Sergeant Pickles with an update for us. It's an update with no updates. Apparently, Grubb had a Zoom meeting with the Seahawks staff. None of an in-person yet. Also, DeBoer seems destined for the NFL. Incredible
I
coach,
agree.
but can't recruit.
I agree 100%. He clearly seems to want to move quickly and not have to do all the recruiting. He's kind of come in and done great things with other people's teams, which shows he's a really good coach. It's just the recruiting aspect does not seem to be his cup of tea. He keeps ditching out on that.
With the ESPN article, this is Bobby Madden speculating about big SEC potentially seeking more guaranteed CFP auto bids. Could big SEC try to use this to host a 4-team conference championship game or 2 conference championship games each? Could they try this for basketball? I think if they go to that 16, I think they're getting rid of the conference championship game.
Yeah, I'm kind of it's at a diverging path. If they're going to expand the CFP, then they're probably moving away from their own conference postseason. If they want to do more conference postseason to sell and control themselves, then we're probably seeing a contraction at the CFP. But I don't think you can have both. It's just too many games, too many weeks, too much conflict with the NFL.
All right, guys. It's we've been on the air for about an hour and a half here. We'll give you another 10, 15 minutes or so. But if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. That way we can get those put up here and we can answer them for you. We got 76 people currently watching the stream. Appreciate that. If you haven't done so yet, you can give us a big like. That would be much appreciated. Let's go ahead and get some more things. Tony Lawson, he just went to the Skins for the OC job. Yeah, that's what I heard as well, Jared. That's what his main goal was. He wanted to get back with Caleb. So, funny thing, our 2024 recruiting class, including transfers, was 33rd when DeBoer left. It is 29th today, and Fish isn't done.
Yeah, I mean, Fish has shown he can put together a team. He did with Arizona. I don't know if he's as good of a coach as DeBoer is, but he seems pretty good at that too. It's just I'd be worried about him getting the call up to the NFL.
Ryan Willie, I felt that when Chip Kelly made his CFB plan, he was planning on leaving. I think so. I think he never wanted to leave the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to go on. I mean, he's a tough one to read. I never really thought the UCLA move made a lot of sense for him, but you take what you're offered.
Bruins always hire the wrong coach, or they hire him at the wrong time. Steve Sarkisian turned out pretty well. He just wasn't great when he was there.
Yeah,
can anyone explain JJ McCarthy hype to me? An NFL is full of game managers holding clippers who are good in college. Yeah, I can explain it to you. For years, I've believed this. These draft analysts you see on TV are on the payroll of agents, hyping up certain candidates to improve their draft stock. And that's obviously the same case with JJ McCarthy. I think he's not even in the top 5 QBs. And I'm not saying that from an Ohio State perspective. He beat Ohio State 3 times. I just don't think he's in the top 5 QBs. He's not a first-round draft pick, not in my opinion.
Nope. And that doesn't mean that he couldn't become a good quarterback. wasn't relied upon to carry the team. He was just kind of going along with it and the face of the team. But that was an offensive line and running back led team. And so if you're not going first round to grab that guy.
You guys are right. Sark was at USC, not UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA just it takes a different kind of person to make that work. And just trying to scan names, I'm not even sure who could make that work right now.
Look, you're in
Kingsbury
the Los
wouldn't be
Angeles.
terrible.
You're in the Los Angeles market. It's not like you're in a bad market for recruiting. You have yes, you have higher admission standards in other schools, but I mean, it's not like there's not kids who can come there and play for you. It's about recruiting and coaching. I mean, he took Dante Moore last year. Their NIL paid for Dante Moore. He was the top quarterback recruit in the nation last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not like you can't get kids to come there. You can. It's if you can win with them or not, which apparently they can't.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just they're kind of in their own market. People look at them as second fiddle to USC. And now, instead of just playing teams that are, kind of in your area and local, now you're talking to your kids about, okay, also now you're traveling across the country with all the games. I don't know. It just got tougher.
Sergeant Pickles, if CFP goes to 16 and SEC big get 2 buys, conference championship games become almost irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't. With the 16 situation, I don't know how you even do buys. It's hard to do in the tournaments. That's why we were saying maybe 14 with 2 buys, and that would just probably generally be the SEC and big. But 16 kind of just seems like it's just a flat number.
Tony Lawson, hope UCLA struggles this year. Gophers can win in the Rose Bowl this year. Never thought I would say that. Well, that's true. Get that team photo taken in front of that Rose Bowl scoreboard. That reminds me of a funny story about Lee Corso. When Lee Corso was the head coach at Indiana, he was playing Woody Hayes and he won the coin toss and elected to receive. Got up 7-0 and organized everybody to take their team picture in front of the scoreboard. Woody Hayes proceeded to beat him 56-7. Never underestimate the willingness of an NFL team to severely overreach for a quarterback and draft him in the first, even though he is a third-round talent. That's true.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers draft him in like a lower round as the backup.
Yeah, that seems like a possibility.
That's what I think is going to happen. And so Herbert will be kind of like under the gun, like, oh, yeah, if you don't do well, the coach's favorite is sitting there as your backup.
My Twitter after the Senior Bowl has been full of delusional Michigan fans saying McCarthy is better than Penix. I get injury concerns matter, but you can't teach arm talent. Yeah, McCarthy's not going to go before Penix.
Penix has great pocket presence in terms of just doing small moves to get open and then throw the ball. McCarthy, not bad, just not on Penix's level. He didn't have to do as much. Quite frankly, he had a better offensive line than Penix did. Not that Oregon had a bad offensive line. It wasn't Michigan's.
Jeff Woodworth, to all NFL teams looking for a quarterback, we have one to sell you, 1-800-BRONCOS.
Yeah, that guy's been sold a few too many times.
Yeah, you guys paid way too much for that.
That was one of those moves they're talking about. Managers kind of losing their minds.
Oh, Sergeant Pickle's doing a promotion here. Also, stay tuned to all something new coming Mondays to CFP Mafia. Yeah, everybody stay tuned to a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff going on here. We got new shows coming up. We've got new members videos coming out. It's going to be exciting, and we're going to fill you in on those details as they become available. Let's end it with this one. JJ will be a bust, and I can heartily applaud that. And thank everybody who came out and attended the live show. I know we had some competition tonight, but I appreciate the people who did attend. Thank you all for your generous donations and your gifted membership. Summit Hawk, you killed it again, my dude.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it as always. Appreciate the super chat from Mooncat as well. We are out of here until Tuesday. A Big 12 Mafia show will be here on Tuesday. Until then, we will say peace out to y'all. Thank y'all for coming out tonight.
Adios.